The camera is just the equipment you use to document something that your personality got you access to, right? And if you don't have a personality, if you don't have a specific type of outlook or perspective on the world, you're not going to make images that are worth anything. They're just going to be snapshots. Ask. Thank you for joining the Black Shutter podcast. How you feeling out there, sis?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling better now. All right. So, just for folks out there, uh, this should be a pretty dope episode because it's taken so many hurdles for us to actually get connected, right? So, initially, uh, we were scheduled to record a few months ago, and then your computer was stolen, right?
Hmm.
Then I had some scheduling issues, and then today you had some electrical issues before logging on, and then when we finally got on, I had audio issues where everything was echoing. So I'm saying here, like, what's happening in the world, in the universe, that's trying to block this conversation from happening? But regardless of all of that, we are here. So, Ask, thank you for joining us.
Of course, of course. I think the conversation is going to be super exciting. That's why probably there's so many hoops and loops we have to jump through. But we're finally here.
Absolutely, and I think as artists, that's uh, something important that we always have to remember is that sometimes when we have challenges trying to make a project happen, trying to make a photo shoot happen, trying to get a certain client or whatever, uh, there are going to be some unforeseen things that pop up,
Definitely.
right? And it's like, well, how do you deal with those unforeseen things, right? So either way, we're here, and I'm happy to have you. So, tell us, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from Accra, Ghana, West Africa.
Hi. There we go. There we go. So, amazing. Thank you for joining us from all the way across the pond. I actually lived in Ghana for about a year, from 2016 to 2017. So I
Really?
lived in Accra. Yeah,
Where in Accra?
I
Do you
lived in
remember?
North Legon.
Oh, nice. I live in East
Yeah,
Legon.
East Legon. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, one of my buddies lives over there. He's still one of my good friends, brother to this day. So
Nice.
very familiar. Yeah,
I
yeah.
hope you
So
come back quite often.
I haven't been back since 2017, and it feels way too long. So
Wow.
I have to make it back out there for sure.
There's a lot of exciting changes and a lot of new creatives you love to meet and experience.
Absolutely, I know that, and that was what was cool about being out there was that there was the art scene was amazing, like everything from like visual artists, photographers, and even graffiti writers and
Mhm.
fashion, of course, music, right?
Yeah,
Like
come on. It's
you
West
know
Africa.
I know, and for me, that was my first time visiting the continent, and I didn't know what to expect. Like you can research something as much as you want, but it's not the same as when you put your feet on the ground and
Yeah,
start to really breathe in that air and experience it, right?
absolutely.
And I was really surprised at the amount of photographers that were out there, and I was like, "This is actually dope." I didn't expect to find like a community of photographers, but it was there. So, and I was like, "Oh, this is dope." So, I actually got to make friends with a bunch of folks and just see what the culture of photography was like out there. So, how would you describe the culture of photography in Accra, Ghana today?
I would say today is very experimental. We actually don't even try to stay away from like changes. I noticed with a lot of like colleagues and other photographers, they are very experimental. I love that about us. We don't get upset with feedback. We ask questions. And I also notice the creative field here is very expressive and really want to learn. If there's something
Hmm.
someone doesn't know, they are bold enough to reach out. And I really love that about us. No one is too big or too small to learn. I have photography
Mm.
friends who are decades older than me. They ask me for help. I ask them for help. And it's no shade. We all respect each other. But the point is, we always leave room for learning.
Hmm. Absolutely, you have to be a student for life, right?
Yeah.
Once we feel like we know it, or we've arrived, then it's the downfall right after that.
That's
You know,
trouble.
yeah, we have to stay a student. There's always something to learn, and if we know something, there's always a way to do it a little bit better or a little bit faster or more efficiently, right? So that's amazing, and I did see the growth in a lot of folks out there. One thing that I respected was, in I remember speaking to one of my friends who was into photography and video, and there were difficulties with him being able to get new gear. You know, if you ordered something, it would, I don't know how long it would take. There's dock fees, there's all types
Mhm.
of hurdles to get new
Mhm.
gear, and it wasn't unless someone had a parent or a relative who traveled back and forth between like the UK and to the US or Japan or Asia, right, where they were able
Mhm.
to go to those places and then bring back the equipment.
Yeah.
If you didn't have that option, then it was really challenging to kind
Mhm.
of grow and evolve as a photographer. And I
Mhm.
remember that seeing so many artists really knowing whatever gear equipment they had, knowing it inside out, because there was no other option at that
Yeah.
moment for them. So the only option was to learn everything about that specific piece of gear. And as I'm from the US, I can see how I take a lot of things for granted, because there's so much accessibility. I can if a lens breaks, I can I can be somewhere in 30 minutes, like no joke, 30 minutes, and have a replacement. Or I could
True.
upgrade if I want. And having that, so being in Ghana and experiencing that, I'm like, wow, I'm really not pushing my creativity and my skills as far as I could, because I'm almost I don't necessarily have to. Like I don't
Yeah.
realize that I'm limiting myself.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
We still kind of face similar issues in the sense of due to the inflation in rates and
Hmm.
prices currently on the Ghana market, people
Yeah.
often try not to buy such equipment. Not that there are not equipments and camera stores available, there are. But
Hmm.
if you are going on Amazon and saying a camera for maybe $2,000,
Hmm.
expect that price to be double when it comes to Ghana. Of course, the
Exactly.
seller needs to make profit, so
Yeah.
it's still difficult, but
Hmm.
there's kind of a little bit of access now compared to
Yeah.
6 7 years ago. But still, the
Yeah.
rate, yeah,
So does Amazon deliver there now?
unfortunately not.
Ah, okay, okay. Because I know that would be a
It will be a
huge
huge,
advantage.
a huge
Indeed, indeed.
advantage.
Um, so I know that just in looking up your work and starting to get more familiar with who you are and what you do, um, you know you you use storytelling in your visuals, and you say that you celebrate people and communities. So can you tell us, how did you discover like photography as a way to celebrate your community?
First, I'll start with my origin story. So, my talents were found by my mom. My mother discovered me, which is very surprising for an African woman because
Hmm.
I find myself very much at an advantage. A lot of African parents do not support their creative African kids. Not that they don't
Hmm.
want to, but because of the continent we're on, creativity
Hmm.
doesn't sell. So this was in 2018. My mother got me an iPhone 8. That was the first time I was ever introduced to portrait mode on the iPhone
Hmm.
8. And I was a senior in high school. My friends asked me if I could take pictures of them that would be used to graduation. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I didn't think much about
Hmm.
it. I took the pictures, shared with my mom, and my mother acted like those were some award-winning images. She showed those pictures to everyone that had eyes. But then in my advantage though, no, she really did show off and she still shows off. In my advantage though, my mom has always been supportive of me. I have always been a creative kid. What I remember, one of my earliest memory of her supporting me creatively, she would take me to like the open market in Liberia. If you don't know, I'm Liberian, Avoran. I just based in,
Okay.
yeah, I'm just based in Ghana though. She would take me into
Hmm.
like the open market in Liberia, what Ghanaians will call mokola, but in Liberia we'll call waterside. And she would buy me like art and craft stuff, fabrics. At the time, I was very interested in fashion and fashion design. I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. Anytime someone asks me, I'm like, I want to be a
Mm.
fashion designer when I grow up. So fast forward, 2018, I took the picture shared with her. It was shown at graduation. And then I went home to Liberia in December of 2018. The day I was leaving Liberia to come back to Ghana, she called me in her room. She was like, I have something for you. And she gifted me a Canon 6D. And she got
Mm.
that Canon 6D 2 years prior to me even knowing anything about photography. She got it for her office, but nobody knew how to use it in the office. But neither did I know how to use a professional camera. But she
Mhm.
was like, I truly feel like I see a job in this field for you. Like you're really talented, you're really gifted with the art, but there's something with those pictures you took that I feel like you can follow on. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Mm.
I didn't really take her serious. I didn't care
Mhm.
about photography. But luckily for me at the time, I had a lot of photography friends and model friends. So she gifted it to me. She's like, if you don't like it, when you come back to Liberia next year, return my camera. But if you do like it, pay me for my camera when you start making money. I'm like, okay, geez.
Nothing's free in this world.
Nothing free. I'm like, okay, Miss Ma'am, sure, I'll take it. I took it. The camera stayed on my shelf for like 2 months, just catching dust. One day
Wow.
randomly, yeah, I know. One day randomly, I was like, fine, I'll take it. And I started playing with it. Started going to YouTube University, asking
Yep.
questions to my photography
Yep.
friends. And what really made me started telling stories with my images is actually because when I first started, there's a lot of colorism in Africa. It's
Mm.
talked about, we're all aware of it, but we act like we are not aware. And if you can, I
Mhm.
don't know if you can, if this video gonna be published, but if you can see me, I'm a dark skinned woman. And at the time, my friends will always get photographers reaching out to them like, we want to shoot with you. And I noticed always the lighter skin or caramel skin girls. I was like, am I ugly? And I'll reach out to photographers and be like, can you shoot? And I have messages of people actually being like, unfortunately, sorry, I'm looking for more light skin models. I'm like, all
Mm.
blonde, up front, colorism. I'm like, okay,
Wow.
geez. So I was like, fine. I said, fine, you know what? I will start taking pictures and I'll take pictures of only dark skin.
Mhm.
The mere reason for that was just honestly hate. I was very upset. And I started
Mhm.
taking pictures of friends. And of course, I just started. I didn't know anything. I had extremely over or underexposed images. But the thing is, I continue shooting and I'll use my iPhone and use the Lightroom mobile app to edit until I
Mhm.
got a MacBook and then I upgraded. But prior to that,
Mhm.
I would shoot. Nobody really cared about me. It was a hobby. I didn't really consider it as a job. And I would just hit up people or take a walk on the street and take pictures. It was
Mhm.
until 2020 that I decided what exactly I wanted to do with photography. In 2020, I was in the States and then came back in 2021 to Ghana. When I came back to
Mhm.
Ghana, I started shooting intensely. Like I was putting so much work out, it almost felt like it was a machine. I would put out like four
Mhm.
different projects out weekly, and these are actually
Wow.
well put together projects. But the thing is, the reason I could have done that is because photography started off as a hobby. So as much as it looked like it was a lot of work to other people, I was having fun. It was a
Having fun.
hobby. I was having
Yeah.
fun. So I started doing that, and then 2021, Ducky Todd came to Ghana. When she came, I don't know if you know Ducky Todd, but Ducky Todd is an Australian model who technically have turned global, then to Paris, Fashion Week,
Mhm.
etc. So she came to Ghana, and I reached out to a friend of hers who was also in Ghana. And at the time, my pictures were going crazy viral on Twitter. You've If you listen to this, you've probably seen some of my work. I guarantee you, between the year of 2020 to 2021, it was just going viral. Like none of my
Mhm.
pictures got anything less than 20 to 40,000 likes at the time, nothing less. And
Wow.
the highest like I got, I think, was 300,000 likes on Twitter. So
Wow.
yeah, so I reached out to her friend and I was like, I would love to take pictures of you. And this was one thing I did that really helped me a lot. I always shot my shot. I didn't care who you were. I would just send a message. If you had a verification sign, I did not care. I just want to take a picture of you. So I reached
Mhm.
out and she was like, oh my God, I actually saved one of your images and I wanted to reach out when I'm in Ghana, but I couldn't find your page. It's like, look at the universe working out. So I took
Yep.
pictures. So she reached back. She was like, by the way, my friend Ducky Todd is in Ghana. I knew Ducky was in Ghana. But I didn't really plan on taking pictures of her because she's such a big model. I felt like even if I DM'd her, she wouldn't respond. So I was like, of course, I have no problem taking pictures of her. So I came down to Osu and I took pictures of them. And
Hmm.
that kind of took my career to another level. But before then, I wanted to tell stories that spoke about colorism and how to
Hmm.
photograph dark skin. I also
Hmm.
would study other photographers' work or would follow other photographers, and I always noticed dark skin was ashy when it's edited. It always looked
Hmm.
ashy, of overly dark. It wasn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't given what it would give if you saw the person in person. I'm like, I don't think anything is wrong with the picture. The picture is beautiful. It's well lit, but the color grading is terrible. It was I'm sorry, it's terrible.
And that's the finishing that's the finished part of the finishing process. So if the color grading is off, it changes how the person is going to view the image. So
Interpret
it's
the
a
image.
very important part.
It's like the polishing of it. You can do all of this work if
Exactly.
it's not polished. It's yeah.
Exactly.
So when I took these pictures and I have girls in different area, whatever, and I started talking about conversations concerning community and societal conversations. One of the pictures that went super viral was talking about hair. I took those pictures. I don't know if you have the picture, but
So yeah. So it's interesting. So Ask doesn't know which photos that I'm going to bring up to speak about. So if anybody that you're mentioning shows up in the photos, please let us know that that's who you were mentioning, like the
okay.
models or
Okay.
whatever. But yeah, so and you know, I'll bring up some of these issues, these photos, so that you can speak about some of the things that you wanted to communicate. You know, but once you finish with your your
Anyways,
story,
I won't go in depth into what the storytelling is. I will just say I started telling stories because I
yeah.
felt deprived as a black woman and nobody was trying to focus on my type of on people that looked like me. So I focused on only dark skin. If you go to my page right now, there's
Hmm.
still no light skinned person on there. And then
Hmm.
I noticed that I started doing reverse colorism. So I'm like, I have to stop this and start taking
Hmm.
pictures of everybody. So yeah, that's kind of how I started storytelling through my images
Yeah.
because people they want to take pictures of me and then yeah.
Hmm. So I think that's, you know, an amazing story. It's an amazing origin story. I think that, you know, I know you say reverse colorism. Um, I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, it's one of those things where if you see there's a gap
Mm-hmm,
and you see like there's something not happening for you in the way that you would like to experience it, and then you create something to
mm-hmm,
fill that gap, I see nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that, you know. So, you know, and I think that's what a lot of artists do is we at least the art that stands out is the
yeah,
art that is serving a particular need for a particular group, and for you
absolutely,
is dark skinned women, right?
absolutely.
Um, so that's an amazing origin story, and I'm glad that you took the camera off the shelf. You started dusting it off, and yo, shout out to your moms, yo,
Big
shout out
shout
to
out
your
to her.
because okay, so I know, like you said, so in the U.S., just art in general, right across the world, art is not always celebrated or seen as a reputable career,
Hmm.
right? Unless the parents themselves are very open minded or artists themselves,
Hmm.
right? So even in the U.S., it's not common for a lot of parents to support their kids who want to go into the arts. So I can imagine even more so, you know, on a continent, you know, like I know like Nigeria puts out the parents are like, you're going into medicine.
Yeah,
It's like
it's not just
nurses and doctors,
Nigeria.
you know.
It's not just Nigeria. Well, I will speak for West Africa because that's where I'm from, but
Hmm.
actually, I don't blame parents when they do this because you have to realize that these people are from a generation where they probably tried to be artists and they saw
Hmm.
what the society did to them.
Yeah.
Forget the
Yeah.
parents. Think about the African society. African society don't pay for art. Like you see people on the roadside selling
Hmm.
paintings and you ask how
Yeah.
much is it and they tell you like 100 is like just for join, something I can do. And
Yeah.
it's so disrespectful. So our whole
Yeah.
notion of art is not supported. And it really breaks my heart because Africa is one of the most creative continent. The way we
Yeah.
dress, our
100%.
colors, it's insane.
But then seeing how especially social media, Instagram, puts you in like that's how you and I are connected and speaking now is because we found your work online. It's like, yo, this is beautiful, and we're gonna start showing some of your work. But yo, this work is
Wait,
beautiful,
wait,
huh?
where exactly did you find me?
Our producer Heather found your work and sent it over, and I was
Where
like,
did
oh,
you
this is
find me? What app was it?
probably Instagram,
Mm,
probably Instagram. So
mm.
I'm gonna share my screen now. I'm gonna stop keeping the people waiting so that they can actually see some of this beautiful work that we're talking about. So 1 second. All right, you see my screen?
Yes, please.
All right, so beautiful work. This is probably when I first opened up the link to start looking at your work. I think this was the first image that I saw, and I was like, okay. I was like starting off very strong, and then you know how it is. We make quick judgments, quick assessments of people's work. So I clicked through and started looking at a few more, and I was like, okay. Immediately there was a consistency from one
Mhm,
image to the next. So then I said, okay, now I'm hooked. Now I'm going to
mhm.
invest more time looking at more images. Right. So this image right here, I thought was really dope. I love the two women and like the composition of their arm hanging over and like the pattern. And for those, this is also going to be just an audio podcast. So the image I'm describing as two black women, dark skinned women holding up this like brown and orange pattern. It looks almost like a rug or some sort of like what kind of material is this?
It's scrawl. It's scrawl that was
Hmm.
made out of plastic. It's matte.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And just the composition of it is really nice. But when I saw this, in my mind, I said, this looks like a combination of fashion and storytelling.
Mhm.
I know you said growing up you wanted to be in
Mhm,
fashion, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
but you picked up the camera instead. So can you tell us what experiences helped to shape your vision as a photographer? Like, how did you know when an image looked good or felt right for you?
Um, my community really helps a lot in shaping the type of images I want to use or I want to
Hmm.
make, and also my childhood. There's a lot of nostalgia in the photos I create, and
Hmm.
I was saying how I intentionally involve fashion photography into my work because, as I said, people like to see pretty things, and I feel like I keep people attention on my page by aiding in fashion. And funny enough, I always get fashion jobs, but I never take it. Not because I don't want to, but oftentimes because either it's not paying as well as a documentary job. So I'm just like, not really. I don't want to be known for that. But to
Hmm.
this picture is called Backyard Kids. And again, it's a memory from my childhood. This mat in the picture is commonly used by West Africans. I don't know the rest of Africa, but I've seen it used everywhere. The first memory I have of this mat is with my grandmother. She will usually ask me to take the mat in the backyard for her to lay under the tree, like for shade. And every time
Hmm.
I saw this mat being used, it was always two people using it. Often Muslims use it to pray, even Christians use it to pray, or you see families sit on it and eat, or you see families sit on it and play games. So I intentionally named this project Backyard Kids because backyard when my grandma asked me. But the reason there's two people in the picture is because I truly believe this mat brings some sort of unity. Whenever it's being used for positive reasons. So you
Mm.
see the both women facing a certain direction, which makes me feel, or I'm trying to interpret that this mat makes people go forward in the sense of when decisions are made on this mat, it's always a positive forward facing
Mm.
decisions. So that's why. And then you have the back of the shack. Funny enough, this mat was my community tailor's mat, and this was in the back of her shop. I intentionally wanted it to be in the back of something just to have the whole backyard thing with my grandma. So
Mm.
yeah, that's kind of the storytelling about it with the mat.
Beautiful, and I love the backstory about the this mat being used for so many positive things like playing games or praying or just relaxing under a tree. That's beautiful, and I love when work has those kinds of details included, something that is very personal to you. I don't know that looking at the image, but feel I feel it, you know what I mean? So thank you for sharing those stories. Uh this image right here gives me a clear idea that you are into fashion, right?
Yeah.
And so the image that we're looking at, is a dark skinned woman with a blonde Marilyn Monroe looking type of wig, and she's like opening a refrigerator,
And
and
dress
you
very
see like
sexily too.
dressed very sexy, very provocative, and it feels like fashion but with an edge. And I don't know what magazine I would picture it in, but it definitely speaks to fashion, but it feels like it's not trying to be, but it is just fresh. You know what I
um,
mean?
this picture is called Homegrown. Oh, well, this project is called Homegrown. And the whole concept is African females are often told how to dress, what to look like in the house or even outside of the house. And I intentionally wanted her to look provocative because I wanted it to feel like I'm taking back my right. As much as I might dress this way, I am still a child of the home. That's why she's within the home and there's like a broken freezer. And I wanted, when you see this picture, I wanted to be able to see myself because I often sometimes just quite provocative. And my mom is always like, "You're from a well trained home." I'm like, "Yeah, I can dress sexy and still be well trained." The clothing on me doesn't say anything about how I was brought up. So I intentionally
Mhm,
named it Homegrown because she was brought up in a home and her clothing doesn't have to tell you if she's bad or good because you can have someone in cover up and they could be the worst person. And it's just
mhm,
technically just trying to say, don't judge a book by its cover. Because when you see her, she's normally in Ghana, people store food and water in the fridge. And the act that she's doing, she's taking a sachet of water. In another picture, she's drinking a sachet of water. But the point is, as much as she's dressed like this, she's still dedicated to her home duties. She's still trying to help out however she can. Her clothing doesn't have to do anything with her upbringing. Yeah.
mhm. I always felt like growing up, I would see men in like three-piece suits making the biggest crimes, stealing millions and millions of dollars from people, and meanwhile, young black kids with a hoodie on
Or
are considered,
dreadlocks
yeah,
are
right,
considered terrible people.
exactly, right. And then if the way that these millionaire criminals are treated, they like have respect. They're walked out of a building, whereas someone who might snatch a bag or snatch a purse, is like beat up, and it's just like the disparity is glaring. You know what I mean? So yeah, really really tight image. And is that her the hair that she presented with, or did you ask? Is that a wig or?
No, 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 no. No. So 90% of my shoots, I style it, I put together the props. I do everything. And it's not because I don't want to collaborate. I often collaborate when needed. Like I just did a project, my very first ever short film. And that project, of course, you can do a short film alone. That was a huge collaborative project. But the point is I often don't collaborate because people don't work on my time in the sense of I want things done when I want it done. And of course, I'm not paying you, so I cannot come and stress you. So I often just be like, it's fine. I'll do my own thing.
Yes.
So there was a third party in this shoot. The clothing, the shirt on it is from another model friend of mine. All my models are my friends. We're cool people. We vibe and we end up being friends.
Hmm.
So the shirt on her was from another model friend clothing brand. And I asked her, can she bring it along? And this skirt that she's wearing, it was done in another shoot. And I was like, I feel like these two outfits will look good together. Bring a boot and then told the girl to wear a certain wig. So as much as I'm putting clothing together, I sometimes give them the clothing or sometimes if my idea fits their wardrobe, then they bring the clothing. But I put the pieces together.
Amazing. So you're producing your photo shoots, you're styling, you're obviously you're directing, you're doing all of that.
Quite literally everything.
Yeah, and that's amazing for someone who just started out doing this as a hobby. Sounds like you just have a vision that you and you don't. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people put a lot of, but put probably complicate things by trying to think too much about it, and it feels like you feel it seems like you're pretty sure about what you want some of the your images to look like.
I feel like since childhood, I've always known that normal 9 to 5 wasn't for me. And I knew some way, somehow, I would have to be in the creative field.
Hmm.
So when photography started off as a hobby, all my hobbies, I'm very sure of what I want. So when I say I want this, I know exactly what I
Hmm.
want. So we'll do exactly. And because again, that's bringing it back to collaboration. Yes, I know how to collaborate, but then with my mom calls it strong head because I have such a strong head. And if my vision isn't delivered, there are so many works I have scratched or so many work I've not put up because I just don't think it matched the vision that I'm trying to go for. And it breaks other people's heart that were on the project, but at the same time, like at the end of the day, this is my brand and
Hmm.
the way I want to be represented, I
Yeah,
have to put out things like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
makes sense. Having a clear understanding of your vision and how you want your work to represent you is like key. It's
important.
very important,
It's very important.
and I think that there's this belief that we always have to keep putting stuff out, put out, put out, put out, and it's quantity over quality. And
Hmm.
I think if we step back and remember, like the body of work that is released to the world is a representation of us as artists, then maybe we don't just rush to put out stuff that is not representative of what we really want. I mean, it's like the whole Tyler Perry argument. I'm not sure how familiar you are, but he just keeps putting out movies after movies, and
I saw on Twitter that people say he just put out the same movies about black women than
yeah,
the lower part of the movie,
yeah,
and
and he just pumps out movies, and they're not good quality, you know,
well, I wish I have his budget.
right?
That's all I want.
But his model is just pump out product, pump it out, pump it out, pump it out. He's not trying to win awards. He's not trying to make uh theatrical classics, and he's not trying to like
Mm.
make cinema. He's making movies for this is like fast food version of movies,
It's
but
a
that's
fast
his
food,
that's his approach to it, and he has his
and I
audience
guess
that works for him,
that's what works for him.
right? But for
Yeah.
other folks, and it sounds like you are considered other folks. You want to put out quality and have
Hmm.
like a message behind it. So stick to that. Uh, you know. So the more I looked at your work, the more I realized that you focus on women, and
Oh yeah, it's very women
yeah,
focused.
I feel like I
Very women
see a few
focused.
photos of dudes in there, but I'm like, I wonder, I
No.
wonder, I wonder what your mindset was about posting it because it feels off brand when I see the pictures of
I know.
dudes. I'm like,
I
oh,
know.
what? I'm like, why was that important to her, right?
I know. But oftentimes there are times that there are conversations that just doesn't only involve women.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. I'm currently working on a project called Area Boys, and the conversations I like to have are very social conversation that has to do with Africans
Hmm.
and particularly African youth and women.
Hmm.
And when I say youth, I'm more directly to boys or men. So area boys, when you hear area boy, normally it has a bad representation. When people say area boys, they're normally talking about gangsters or ghetto boys or boys that are not doing anything good in the
Hmm.
community. But then I don't agree. I don't agree because I'm very much involved in my community in the sense of I will go and just hang out with the community kids. If you've ever seen my videos on TikTok or behind the scenes, you see that I actually vibe with people. And when getting to know that this is not exactly what area boys should be, meaning in the sense of bad people. Yes, there are a few bad people, but realistically, area boys are just group of brothers. Just how you have sisterhoods,
Hmm.
is a group of young boys that grow up together, that
Hmm.
become teenagers, young men, and stay in the community. Yes, they might not be physically built in school or whatever, but they're keeping the society still together. If you come to a certain area or a certain community and someone was trying to bully a kid, guess what? An older kid will come and stop that from happening. And that's where the positive sides of area boys shows.
Hmm.
Like you have them playing games and football. So I'm doing this project which documents area boy, but in a very positive light.
Mm.
So that's kind of where you see sometimes the boys kind of come up on my feed and stuff like that.
So right now you're talking about this area boy project, but I have this image, this beautiful black and white image of a woman with curlers in her hair and like a nice textured dress. But it would be great if you can share. Are you able to share like a frame of that project so I can include it?
The area boy
Yeah,
project.
like a work in progress frame.
Uh it's currently no.
No.
When it's going to
All
come on,
right, all
you
right,
see.
all right, all right. No problem. So, it's great to hear that you are, you do consider featuring, men or boys in your work as well. Okay, so the image up now is this black and white image, the woman with curlers,
Mhm,
like a hair salon. What I love about it is, this is one of the first black and white images that I see, and it looks very intentional that you made it black and white because there's a
mhm,
texture in her hair and with the rollers, right? It's creating a
mhm,
nice, interesting texture, and then there's texture in her dress. She's wearing like this black dress with like some
mhm,
white stitching and flowers, and the combination of the stitching on and the pattern on the dress combined with the pattern and the texture of her hair just makes it feel very visual. So I love it, but it's also very, this is like it has an everyday beauty about it.
yeah,
It's
everyday
like,
feel.
um it's hard to go throughout a single day without seeing a woman doing something to beautify themselves, right? It could be before you leave the house, or for me, I live in New York City, so I could be on the train and I see there's always a woman
Yeah,
doing like touch up on her face or
something.
her eyes,
Yeah.
or fixing her hair, or spraying something, right? There's always some sort of beautification process happening.
Yeah.
But this image is very elegant, so um with this image, I wonder if you could tell us, like, was this a staged documentary image, or was it candid, you know
It was staged.
staged?
So this project is called Beauty No They Stop My Hustle. That's impingent. In proper English, it just means my hustle isn't stopped by the beauty process,
Hmm.
or the process of beautifying myself doesn't stop me from working. So you can clearly see this picture, the way it was edited, it was meant to look vintage.
Yeah.
The reason I intentionally did this is because from as young as I even have pictures of my grandmother in her like she had a shop in the market and she's beautifying herself
Hmm.
whilst in the market. And the point I was trying to make is for ages and years on, women has always been beautifying themselves. As much as they know the importance of making a living for
Hmm.
themselves, they still want to make themselves look
Yeah.
beautiful. So oftentimes, even up to today, they still do it. Women will go to the hair salon. Remember, time is money. And these women on the street, for example, roadside hawkers or plantain sellers, for this shoot, this model was a plantain seller. That's a business that's very popular in Ghana
Hmm.
for an everyday person to do. So they will normally go to the salon, get their hair washed. They don't have time to dry it. And the Ghana sun is very hot. So what they'll do is leave the rollers in the hair, come to work, and then at the end of the day, take the rollers back to the salon, or sometimes even bring their own rollers, and then they don't have to deal with the salon anymore, which also which also cuts down their cost
Yeah.
because if you're using the electricity, they will add maybe 10 more cities on your cost. And I love the concept because it's like I'm still trying, as much as technically people consider people on the roadside not to be
Hmm.
respected jobs, as much as it's considered not to be respected job, they're still trying to put themselves together and look presentable
Hmm.
for whatever that they're trying to interact or do. I intentionally use this dress. This dress is a thrifted dress. A lot of my clothing I use are thrifted because I know the importance of the global warming and stuff like that. So I try as much to use thrifted stuff. And also being in Ghana, back to the rate, you don't have the budget to be buying new things. So you have to go thrifting.
Hmm.
So I intentionally used this dress because I wanted it to feel feminine. Feminine in the sense that you see it's flowers on it, it has beads and stuff. Feminine because a lot of time when women are on the street, they are often taken for granted, misused. You have girls been raped. There are just negative things happening. And I believe that you should still be living in your feminine aura when you're doing anything you want to do, work wise or whatever. So yeah, that's the story behind
Hmm.
this picture.
Amazing. I love like all the backstory and intentionality behind your images. That's such a great skill and process to
Thank you.
have. You're welcome. So with this image with the rollers, I know this feels like it might be. This is where photographing for or within a community, uh, it makes sense to be aware of certain customs because this is something that, like, as an outsider, I wouldn't know those details
Mhm.
about getting your hair done and then being in the sun and letting it dry. You know,
Mhm.
is this something that you feel like people would look at, like in West Africa or Ghana in particular, would see this image and have an understanding of what this woman, who this woman is, and what she's doing?
This this particular image, no, but then there's a bunch of images on the
Hmm.
series where she's behind the plantain selling it. For that image, any West African would know exactly
Hmm.
what we're talking about.
Got it.
Yeah. But
Perfect.
this image, the reason I say particularly no, because you can clearly see the background, the foreground is blurred.
Hmm.
You only see her hair.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of different stories going on here. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Beautiful. I love this image.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, I noticed that is 95% women featured in your work, right? Except for the random straggler photos that you threw up in your IG. But how do the women feel when you photograph them? I know you said you photograph a lot of your friends, or you have friends who are models, or within that scene. Like, how do these women feel when you photograph them?
Honestly, that's one question I wish that someone could ask like a model of mine. But I would say just from my perspective. From my perspective, I feel like they feel seen. They feel seen in the sense of one thing that happens on this side of the world quite often. Well, it can happen anywhere else, but women, beautiful women, often get extremely sexualized, and because they know it's another female coming to shoot, there's a feel of comfortableness that happens that sometimes I don't even have to ask them.
Hmm.
But one thing that I do and make sure to do is always remember that the picture is not about me, it's about them.
Hmm.
And I do everything in my way possible to make my model as comfortable as possible. If she says no, it's almost like she controls me or whoever I'm shooting controls me. I remember that the camera and me are being used as a vessel to share a story.
Yeah.
And if I can't please this model where she wants to tell the story, deliver it to my vision,
Hmm.
then I will be at fault or I will have the problem because when the pictures come out, I don't like it. It's not her fault. It's how I directed her or how comfortable she was on set.
Yeah.
So normally when we shoot and they see it, they're always happy. They're always like, I really love how you photograph me because first of all, I like how my skin looks, etc., etc. The reason I
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
the reason I know that they're always happy is because I can call up a model at 12 a.m. and be like, yo, let's go and shoot. They're like, I'm down for you. It's almost like I want the luxury with models.
Mhm.
They're always down to do whatever I want to do. And people quite always ask me, why is it like, what are you doing that these people want to do whatever you want to do? I'm
Mhm.
like, first of all, I see them as a
Yeah.
person. I respect them. And I know that the picture is just another layer to this, but you have to have a human interaction with this
Yeah.
person to make them feel respected.
Hmm.
As much as other people might not respect modeling jobs and just be like, it's just a picture, I'm like, I understand your value. If you are not here, I cannot make this picture happen.
Yeah.
I don't care. The reason I selected you is because I know you have the attitude. And because a lot of my pictures tell stories, when I'm on set, I often ask models to just pretend like I'm not there.
Hmm.
And as time goes on, they get so comfortable, they start to play that role. It's almost like a character, and they start to play it to the point that I get my pictures before they even notice. Okay, I'll go back to the picture of the girl opening the freezer, homegrown. That picture wasn't staged. She was actually going to get water to drink, but then I kind of camouflaged and
Yeah.
took the picture. I'm like, that's
Hmm.
what I've been wanting.
Yep.
So yeah,
Beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful. And for those who may not be able to see the photo, it's a beautiful image. Beautiful sister in a look in an aisle of either like a cosmetic store or a market, and it looks like she's in the hair product aisle, and she has
Mhm.
like this beautiful crown of not like a queen crown, but her hair is like locks and beautiful and just wrapped up. Um, and to me, it feels like it definitely feels staged. And
Yeah,
the
it's tasty.
storytelling, is like she has this beautiful head of natural hair in this aisle of cosmetics. And so with me, I'm seeing this, and I wanted to ask you, like, this seems like there's some sort of commentary that you are hinting at. Can you like elaborate a little bit more on what's happening in this image?
So this photograph is called Beauty Store Run, and this photograph was taken in the States,
Aha.
in Maryland. Yeah, in Maryland. And when I shot this picture, the idea was to show the typical beauty store run.
Hmm.
You see, well, you viewers can see, but in the picture, she's fully
Hmm.
dressed, have everything on. The idea was she's going to a event and forgot something that she needs
Hmm.
from the beauty store concerning her hair or
Hmm.
whatever. And that's why it's beauty store run.
Got it.
So a lot of my pictures are very much um, based off of everyday activities.
Hmm.
These activities that people don't normally
Yeah.
remember, but then when you photograph it and be like, oh, I can relate to
Yeah.
that. So yeah.
And I get that, right? That's one of the previous image, the black and white image with the woman with the hair curlers. That's something that I mentioned, is that it had an everyday beauty, and I feel like what
Exactly.
you're doing, the way that you're approaching your work, feels like these are like everyday. You're able to create and stage these images, these scenes that feel like everyday moments, but is
Exactly.
also, it could be challenging to stage something that feels normal,
Natural.
right? Yeah, exactly. And with that, you have to have a some sort of relation with the person that you're photographing. They need to be comfortable with you, right? And I remember when I started to get into documentary, there was this quote that said, if your documentary, and this is more documentary video, but it was like, if your
Yeah.
documentary turns out exactly the way that you wanted to, then you weren't listening. And
Mm.
and I hear that approach with what you just said, as far as it's not about you, right?
Mhm.
It's a collaboration between other person, and if you're able to communicate what your vision is, right? That's one part. Maybe that's the first half, and then by giving the person you're photographing the
Mhm.
autonomy to be
To just
themselves and
be
show up,
themselves. Yeah.
then they're going to
Yeah.
give you the second half of what's needed in
I
the
will, I
story.
will, I will, I will tell you a story. I did a project for Water Aid
Hmm.
UK in February, and when I was on that project, honestly, one thing I must say that I was gifted with outside of creativity is people management skills. I
Yes.
really know how to socialize and communicate. Like I know how to be a part of people when I need to be.
Hmm.
We went to the northern part of Ghana, and when we're there, the northern part of Ghana is majority Muslims. And when we're there, we went to a smaller village in the northern part of Ghana. This village doesn't speak English. So imagine how hard it was for them. They don't understand me. I don't understand them, but
Hmm.
I need them to do certain
Yeah.
things. But before I left that place, we ended up becoming so cool to the point that we exchanged numbers.
Hmm.
I even did a whole different separate shoot outside of the
Hmm.
actual project
Yeah.
I went for. And funny enough, just last week, the picture that I did for the shoot actually got awarded by the British Journal of Photography Portrait of Humanity.
Wow.
But the point I'm trying, yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is you always have to remember that these are people and you have to take the camera aside. You
Yes.
have to connect. If you don't connect, you won't get what you want. You have to connect, make them feel valuable, get to that level.
Hmm.
If there's a baby, there's times that a lot of time people always like, we really love to see your BTS because the way you connect with people. If
Hmm.
there's a baby, act like a baby. If there's a grown up, act like a grown up. If there's a person your age, behave like the way you behave, and
Hmm.
they will give you what you want.
Yeah. By being yourself, you give other people the opportunity to be themselves, the confidence to be themselves. So if you're silly and goofy
Exactly.
and you're confident in that goofiness, right? Then people are like, "Oh, man, she's cool," or
Yeah,
"He's cool." It's like, "All
exactly.
right, cool. I can be myself," right? Um,
Exactly.
wow, great! Congratulations on getting that award. That's pretty cool, and it sounds like it was unexpected because you were able to just build that rapport with the people. So well done.
Exactly.
That's really
Thank
dope.
you. Thank you.
You
Thank you.
got it. Uh, so this was, I think, either like the
This was
second
the
or third.
picture.
Go ahead.
This is the picture from the water aid thing that I was just talking about. This is one of the pictures.
Wow. See, great. This is one that won the award,
No, this is not
but
one,
it was
but
part of
one
that.
of the
Part of that.
pictures.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the picture of her
Hmm.
won the award. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So for folks who are listening, really dope image of a woman on a moped. She has like these cool, funky orange sunglasses. She has locks or braids. I can't really tell, but it looks like braids. Um,
It's
those
locks.
are locks. She has
Yeah.
locks in a bun, and it's like a really dope pattern on a cloth in the background. And she's wearing like, you know, a shirt and pants with like different African patterns on it.
Yeah.
And what I loved about this image was the a woman on a motorcycle or a moped always to me just communicates that she's feminine but also tough and
Yeah.
and also like she's just gonna get things done you know
Hmm.
so I appreciated that, but visually or artistically what stood out to me about this image was your use of color or your
Mm,
observation of color. So
mm,
and from one image to the next you see color very interestingly, right? So I love how the shades, these orange shades, complement the orange in the backdrop,
mhm,
but then you're also
mhm.
combining this orange in her shirt, which I'm sure she coordinated that, but then having like
Of
the
course.
patterns, right? Yeah, the patterns of her shirt going against the pattern on the background and the color of the shades with the background and all that kind of just
Mhm,
lined up really nice. And so it's hard to also combine color with pattern and texture while photographing the
mhm.
person, right? So, how much do you pay attention to these things, the colors and the patterns and the backgrounds? How much do you pay attention to all these things when you're actually composing an image?
When I'm taking pictures on the spot, I think that's what I pay more attention to even the poses,
Hmm.
because I know that for my pictures, I use a lot of colors. Like I tell my stories through a lot of color theory.
Hmm.
And so when I'm taking it, I'm always focused on colors. But for this particular picture, I really wanted her fashion sense to
Yeah, I
show
got it.
because I'm like, girl, you're so cool.
Hmm.
And funny enough, we actually became friends. I wish I could show you the video. She even drove me around the community on her bike. And
Nice.
because I was scared, I was like, I'm scared. She's like, no, 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 come, I'll teach you, I'll teach you. But she didn't speak English. So the little she knew, I'm like, it's fine, I'll just sit behind you.
Hmm.
Funny enough, the background is actually another mat, the same mat
Aha.
that was used, but of different design.
Yeah.
My point again was how wildly spread this mat is used
Hmm.
across West Africa.
Hmm.
But this picture was actually documenting the bike, and it was talking about how the northern women use bike for their daily
Hmm.
transportation.
Yeah.
They use bikes so much to the point that if you wanted to get the attention of a young lady and you bought her a car, she wouldn't mind you. But if you get her a bike, she'd be like, "Yeah, I'm interested in whatever you're talking about." And I and I found it quite interesting because
What?
I'm like, what a perspective. Because if this was in Accra, which is the capital of Ghana, this would never happen.
Mhm.
Nobody wants a bike. But she
Wow.
was so happy with her bike. And you have women having kids on the back of the bike, taking kids to school. If you scroll through the slide of this picture,
Mhm.
I recommend if you're listening to this podcast, please, you can just go to my Instagram and you see the pictures we're talking
Mhm.
about. If you scroll through it, you see another woman sat on the bike and she has a baby on her. That's a normal,
Yeah.
regular day activity in the North. But then, from a perspective of someone who has not lived in the North and coming from the capital, I'm like, this is so amazing. If I would like to see it, other people would like to see this too. So that's when I collected them and took a picture. my point about paying attention to colors, the background of the picture initially wasn't the color that I like. If you see a little bit under near the bike
Mm-hmm.
in the left side of the picture,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a peach color.
Yeah.
And when I took it, I knew that the peach wouldn't come off the way I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to. So I went and collected a mat
Mm-hmm.
and just rolled it out, and it played out perfectly how I
Oh, so
imagined it or wanted it to
you
be.
staged that one with the
Yeah,
map.
yeah,
Beautiful,
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So my wife is from the Dominican Republic, and going back to what you were saying about colorism, there's a lot of colorism in Dominican Republic. They share the island with Haiti, and there's a
Hmm.
lot of light skin versus dark skin, challenges
Of
there, right?
course.
And whenever we go to Dominican Republic, my wife is like, I don't understand how folks don't connect to the
The
African
beauty.
side of their culture. And when they're called motoconchos, right? The mopeds.
Hmm.
There's always people on bikes, and we see whole families on bikes. Like the dude is
Yes.
driving, the mother's carrying two kids, like sometimes brand like newborns. So it's like four people or five people on a bike. And one time
And
I
it's just
saw
so normal.
exactly, it's just normal. They're just going to work or wherever, going home. And one time I saw somebody on a bike with a dude on the back carrying another bike. And I was like, man, if that's so crazy, man. Like, and to see like how the bike culture is respected here in the northern part of Ghana, and I'm sure like all over the continent, it's like you just do what you got to
Yeah.
do. It's the bike is a very like uh, it's a it feels just really normal. It's you don't think
It
too much
does.
about it.
There's even another picture, not a picture, I think it's a video. I went to another part of the north and I saw a 7-month-old child sitting like somewhere and it was so calm, and the dad was almost trying to like teach the kid. And I asked the people, I'm like, why is he trying? He's like, because kids as young as 5 can ride a bike here.
Mhm.
They try to teach them from very. I'm like, interesting, I didn't know that.
And it makes you consider how smart children are and how capable they are. If it's something that they grow up
Absolutely.
doing and it's not nothing foreign, like they could probably do a whole lot more than what we give them credit for,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So beautiful, beautiful. I mean, so far all these photos have beautiful stories. So thank you. Um,
Of course.
so yeah, I love this image also. I love the contrast. There's a beautiful dark skinned woman with like a cream colored dress, a black belt, um, and the contrast of her arm and her hand against the cream colored dress, and then like the yellow door gives like a nice separation between her and the background.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this also feels like a straight up fashion,
I
shot.
know. I know.
Like I can see this in a bunch, a variety of magazines, right? And I think you were also featured in Vogue, right? Some of your work was featured
Oh
in
yeah.
Vogue. Yeah, so
Um, I
makes
was
sense.
I was featuring Vogue, but then also shout out to Ducky when she was in Ghana. She got me a job to work on the A Day in My Life of Vogue
Hmm.
on YouTube.
Yeah,
So I was in that. Yeah. So it's
beautiful.
been quite a good run.
Yeah, that's so dope. And I love the contrast and the color of this image. Um, like, can you tell us a little bit about how you put this one together?
So this image is called Kuba. Everything on her is thrifted except for the earrings. I stole the earrings from my mom.
Hmm.
Um, the picture is called Kuba. The model in the picture is also named Kuba. I
Hmm.
think her name is Tani. And when I took this picture, I didn't know what I was trying to say. A lot of time when I take my pictures, the stories either come before or after. The picture already be created, then I find a story to put onto it. And when I took it, and after I took it, I saw the way the lady in the foreground is looking at the camera, but you can't really see
Hmm.
her so well. It hit me. I'm just like, Kuba looks like she's the main character in this picture.
Hmm.
The whole idea is to be like, Kuba knows she's that girl.
Yeah,
Like, you cannot tell her
yeah,
anything. She's like, you can see her face. Like, you
yeah.
get, that's someone you don't want to mess with. She is that girl. But then I feel like the woman in the picture represents like before you, I was that girl. And she's just looking at,
Ah.
yeah, she's just looking at her like, girl, please, these young kids, I was here before you. So as much as there wasn't any story prior, when I took the picture
Mhm.
and I saw it, I'm like, this is just given what I just said. Yeah.
That's dope. That's dope. And the reason why I ask sometimes if a photo was staged or not, or is because sometimes I feel like we compose images and we see these cool details as we're composing, but we're still really focused on the main character. It's not until we get back home and we start to look at the photos and we see those details pop up that I'm sure you were aware of, but may not have been focusing on.
Yes,
And they
absolutely.
turn out to be like nice
It worked
surprises.
in my favor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's really cool to see that. It's funny
Mhm.
too. Like, yo, like sit down, young. And I was here before you. I know how this
Yeah, I
goes.
was here before you. I know how this goes
Indeed,
exactly.
indeed. So again, when I started to see this, felt very documentary. This next image is a black and white image of an older woman and a young girl with a crown on her head, and she's like fixing the back of the dress or the shirt of the older woman. And when I saw this image, this was one of the few that I saw that involved um like action
Mhm.
and more than one person, and
Mhm.
also you're jumping generations here, right?
Mhm.
And this to me is what told me, okay, after out of all the images that I've seen so far of this woman's work, she's 100% committed to showcasing women
Mhm.
in a very
In
authentic,
different
in
stages of
different
their life.
stages, and very authentic and very empowering. And I love the
Mhm.
fact that the young girl is tending to the elder in this image. So yeah,
Mhm.
definitely the power of women. I love the connection of the generations, and this also feels like um, you're honoring motherhood in this image.
Yeah, so let me tell you about this image. This image is technically, again, of my childhood. This is a moment, like, I randomly just remembered. It's like, sorry, my memory feels very picturestic. Memories come in my head, and then I try to recreate that picture that I remember.
Okay.
So, my mom, this picture is actually from a short film that I did, which is currently being exhibited in Sweden. It's called Sundays Are Just for Me and Ma.
Yeah.
Sundays are just for me and Ma. And the reason I named it that is because my mother is a very busy individual. She never really had time for me except for Sundays. On Sundays,
Mm.
she would wake up and get me ready for church. She would put me. I After this interview, I would love for you to go and see the video. It's also still on my page. It's
Yep.
called Sundays of Yema. And the kid narrates how her mom cares for her on Sundays. She gets her the prettiest dress, put so much shea butter on her that her forehead, you can see her through. Yeah. So the whole point of this image was they were both getting ready, and I remember vividly my mom would ask me to zip up her dress because you can't put your hand behind your back.
Mhm.
And technically, this picture, the kid is me, the mother is my mom. But then this is a moment that so many African kids also experience. My baby sister still experiences this with my mom. I see my friends, they still experience this. So that's kind of where the nostalgia play in. But the point was just to show the relationship between a mother and her daughter.
Mm. And this is hinting at your childhood. This is like sort of like
Yes.
autobiographical.
Yes,
Ah,
yes,
man,
yes.
beautiful. I did see this. I did see the film on your site. I didn't get to sit and watch it, but I will as soon as we're done with this. And I think it's also dope that you started out as a hobbyist photographer, and now you're making short films that are being exhibited
I
in. You
know.
said in Sweden or Switzerland?
Sweden.
Sweden. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just keep you. I
Thank
think that's a
you.
testament to just like, just do it. Do some shit
Just do
and
it.
release it. Like, stop thinking too much about it. Do it, release
Do
it.
it and stay consistent with it.
Yes.
I promise you, a day will come, someone will notice you. Because trust me, nobody noticed me for the last 4 years.
Hmm.
And now this year is going to make me 7 years into
Hmm.
photography and videography. Nobody knew me, but because it was a hobby,
Hmm.
I kept doing it.
Yeah.
But if I saw it as a job, I would have given up after the first 2, 3
Yeah.
years.
100%.
Yeah.
So you have to have
Yeah.
something that drives you.
Absolutely.
more than money in order to stay
Yes,
with it.
more than money.
Mhm. Again, this definitely feels staged, definitely feels fashion. Um, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, that photography is a collaboration,
Hmm.
and I get the sense that these women pretty much all feel very comfortable with you. I feel like it looks like you hang out with them, um, and in between hanging out with them, you just make some really beautiful
Pictures.
portraits of them, and then you go back to hanging out. That's sort of the vibe I get from a lot of the
That
work.
is exactly the vibe that
Hmm.
we be doing.
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
come. Oftentimes, shoot starts way later than we should because we are just gisting,
Hmm.
talking about random things.
Hmm.
But the point is, you need that 2, 3 hour window to get the person so comfortable
Yeah.
that if you ask them, "Are you comfortable with taking a shirt off to take?" They're like, "Yeah, I feel comfortable with you. Let's
Yeah.
do it." That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice, beautiful image. What's happening with this vase?
You said something about I see this image is staged.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to go back a little bit to that. Yes, it's staged.
Mm-hmm.
It's intentionally staged. Um, I say this because I said like I add fashion into my feed or into because it keeps people coming back. The pic, like for example, you didn't even select any of the actual documentary work, but it's the documentary work that gave me the money
Mm-hmm.
that makes me a living. But the point is, I find ways to still document through beautiful pictures.
Mm-hmm.
This picture was quite literally. It's called the lady of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
The lady of the hour. And a lot of the pictures I take are either reference from me or my friends or my family. And there are times that I often don't feel like I am being paid attention to from like public or whatever. And I feel like I'm not getting the spotlight. So the point of this picture, I wanted when you see the picture, I wanted her to feel like she's the lady of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's no spotlight on her or whatever, but she's the lady of the hour. The vase can represent her being like she's holding the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment. And if you see it, you're struck. As much as she's half naked, you don't feel or you don't see it in a sexual way.
Yeah.
You see it in more like, oh my God, this is a stunning human being,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense. Also, going back to the point of when people are only taking light skinned women or they didn't see that dark skinned women were beautiful, so I intentionally take beautiful pictures of us to also remind us that you're stunning.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't, if since you're not seeing this picture, the model is bald, completely shaved down to her head.
Mm-hmm.
And normally women consider that beauty with that hair. And when I took this picture, I'm like, you are such a beautiful person. Of course, I knew she was beautiful, but when I took the picture, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, her arm, the face, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely. I mean, you definitely get that vibe of not sexualizing her. Even when you photograph women who are showing a lot of skin, there's a respect to it. There's for me as a viewer, as a male viewer, seeing it, like I'm not. I don't feel like this is voyeuristic.
Yeah.
I can see it and respect the power of the woman in the image,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
I think that's the difference between who's behind the camera. But
Thank you.
that makes a big difference.
That
Like,
makes a huge difference.
I might be there in very similar situations with these women that you're photographing, and just by the fact that I'm a man, I might photograph it completely. I will photograph it completely differently. I always try to have a certain level of respect when I'm photographing women,
Of
especially
course.
in situations like this. But I'm still a man, and I still have a certain approach to
Yeah.
how I see the world, and I would just do it very differently. And she may the collaboration would also be a little bit different just by the fact that
Of
I'm a man
course.
and
Of
they're women.
course.
So it's important to have like that sensitivity. So yeah, it's a beautiful image.
Thank you.
I love this. Is this the same model?
No, it's a
No.
different model.
Oh, all right. I ask because it looks like, so if you're styling them, you understand there needs to be some contrast, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
photographing dark skinned women, you're putting them in clothing that contrast their skin.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in this image, very similar to the last one, is a dark skinned woman with either like a white or yellow orangey type of dress, and she has like this
A scarf on her head.
see through scarf over her head, so you can't really see her face. You can't see her face at all, but the scarf is sort of like blowing in the wind and it's creating like a nice shape, and it looks like it's almost like is that a roof
Yeah,
or
it's the
like
it's a roof at the back of her.
on the floor?
Yeah.
There's a roof on the floor.
I know,
That
I
makes
know.
sense.
That one wasn't staged though. That was just in my
Uh-huh.
community. This picture, I even got an interview on this picture by Flickr.
Hmm.
And this picture, I love it because it felt so natural. It's funny enough, we're shooting a different shoot. And then I saw the roof and I'm like, I need to take pictures of this roof. But the
Yeah.
shoot we're doing wouldn't make sense for the roof to be in the back. It still doesn't make sense for the
Aha.
roof to be in the back of this picture, but I just saw it from a creative perspective. There's no storytelling in this picture at all. It's just literally a beautiful portrait. That's it. So when I was taking the picture, I saw the way the light was hitting the roof, and then I had a scarf tied around my waist. So I was like, wait for me in this, like, wait a second. And then I went and got the dress. She wasn't wearing this dress, she was wearing a red dress. As I said, we're doing a different shoot. I went,
Hmm.
got the dress, made her change, and then I took the picture. And the wind and the sun was like paid actors. They were doing so well in my favor. Like the way you see the light coming through the scarf.
Yeah.
The scarf is blue, but the way the sun is hitting through it, it looks a bit yellowish green. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's everything just played out well in my favor for this picture.
So it's interesting to that you say there's no story behind this image, and so what I get from that is you didn't have an intention, the same kind of intention in making this image as in some of the
Absolutely.
previous images. But I will say, as a viewer,
Hmm.
looking at this image, there's so much story in the image.
I love
It's
that.
so much story in the image. You may not have you may not
Intentionally.
have like the intention or the emotional connection to it the way you did in other images, but there's so much great story happening in here. And you know the reason why I say this story in it is because whenever we look at an image and we have questions about it, that's us creating stories in
Yeah.
our head,
Yeah.
and the images cre- always have me asking questions. I become curious and I become inquisitive, and to me that is the art of storytelling, is
I really
especially looking at images.
I really do appreciate that because I would like to make images that you just don't look at for like 5 seconds and be like, oh, that's a pretty
Yeah.
image. Let's move on. I love to make
Fast
images.
food.
Yeah, I love to the fast food. I love to make images that crack conversations. I want you to ask what's
Mhm.
happening.
Yeah,
Wow, why is this like this? Why? And I love
exactly.
that. The reason I love it is because you're giving me the opportunity to tell you more about African stories. So, for example, you
Yes.
asked about the mat. I got the opportunity to talk about my grandma, but then also talk
Hmm.
about the public use of this mat. And a lot of
Yeah.
time, common African stories haven't really been stored or been managed well, and it's
Hmm.
slowly being erased. And that's why I try to focus on the common day African things. Because when I was a
Right.
child, there were things that I had that I see my little sisters or babies do not have. And even we talk about it, like, what is that? I'm like, this is exactly why I do this. Common day African
Hmm.
things that needs to be stored for the generations
Yeah.
ahead.
Archive.
Yeah, archived,
Right.
exactly.
Exactly. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Definitely, you have an art of storytelling. So even if you just randomly taking images, I mean, think about it. With documentary, you know, there's a thin line between candid images and stage. You have like documentaries, not quite photojournalism, where you can't like interrupt the scene at all.
Mhm.
You want documentary to be as authentic
As
as possible
possible.
to help convey what's happening in the story. But there are moments when you can direct people in documentary to do something that's still going to add to the story, right? And you have an eye to do that, you know. So I see the documentary part of you show up in your portraits, and I think that's a really dope skill to have.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, uh, group shot. This is a group shot of four women, uh, very fashionably dressed on the beach. It's a combination of like, what kind of hats are these called?
I'm sorry, I don't know the name. Forgive me. But funny enough, both of
Hmm.
the hats are hats from my granddad. Like I stole them. I didn't steal them, but he gave it to me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. So it's a combination like they're dressed very. I'm not even sure what the style would be, but it's almost masculine.
Yeah, it is.
Like button shirts and pants. And it's like they're posed in a very interesting way, very symmetrical way, black and white. On the beach, we see waves in the background. We see shades. We see hair wraps. We see hats. Very interesting, photo. It's the first group shot that I've seen of yours. But this helps me go back to the how we opened the conversation talking about your love for photographing community, and I see right here is like a community of women, for women. Um, what sort of suggestions would you give to photographers who document a community? Like, how would you suggest that they document a community with like the care and sensitivity that we see in your work?
I honestly will advise, let's say, for example, you're going to shoot Brooklyn, New York, and
Mm-hmm.
you're from Togo.
Mm-hmm.
Before you even take your camera, take a day to get immersed into the culture of Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Do not bring out
Yeah.
the camera. Don't even forget
Yeah.
about the camera. Connect with people, ask people, because you have to remember this is not your culture, this is not your community, you're not from here. Even if you were from there, people are still doing things differently. So the most important thing you need to do is connect. So let's say, for example, you take that day and connect and make yourself a bit more familiar with the shops and people, and you actually buy and you communicate. You have like a substantial length of conversations with people, not just, hi, how are you? I'm from Togo. More like, I'm from Togo. This is my culture. Can you tell me a bit about Brooklyn culture? You need to do a lot of research before you even document that community. So when you come and you pull out a camera, they don't feel victimized or they don't feel offended that you have a camera. We have to remember a camera is a weapon. However, you use it will be told through the images. So if you didn't speak to the people in Brooklyn and you took our camera, they'll be offended. Why are you trying to take my picture? Where is that picture going? So many questions. But if you go prior and communicate, this is what these pictures are going to be used for. This is what I do. Let's vibe. Let's communicate. Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy something from you? Can we hang out? That
Mm-hmm.
breaks so much barriers between you and the community that they'll invite you. And also, you have to remember you're not from that community. You have to go with such open mind that whatever they do
Mm-hmm.
different there that they don't do in your community, don't be offended. Don't say anything about it. Don't go and try to change things. That's not your space
Yeah.
to do it. All you have to do is
Yeah.
take pictures. And as much as you're taking pictures, you have to camouflage. You have to act like them. So there are times that I've been documenting Eid, that's a Muslim holiday, similar
Mm-hmm.
to like Christmas. And every time I go to document Eid, I always remember I'm not one of these people and I still have to respect them. I dress accordingly. I tie my
Mm-hmm.
hair. There are times that I go there, even speaking to me in Arabic. I'm like, I'm so sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. But the point is, I get what I want. And even at like my last Eid was just last month. I took pictures and I had older women. I have the video on Twitter. It's quite hilarious. They were blessing me. They were like, we are looking for a husband, my daughter. Don't look for a man with money. Look for a man for love. But the point is, because I made that connection with them, they were comfortable enough to talk to me outside of just pictures. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Photography is about your personality, especially photography that involves other people. It's about your
Absolutely.
personality. And the camera is just the equipment you use to document something that your personality got you access to, right? And
Hmm.
if you don't have a personality, if you don't have a specific type of outlook or perspective on the world, you're not going to make images that are worth anything. They're just going to be snapshots. Ask, it's a little bit abrupt, but that's how these things go. Thank you so much for joining. We made it happen. And I will make sure like there's links to all of the different work we have. So I know it's a little bit abrupt, y'all, but thank you for joining the Black Shutter podcast. And we'll stay connected. All right, sis?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so sorry I have
You
to go
got it.
so
You got
quickly,
it.
but
No
it was
problem.
an honor and I'm really excited to hear this. And also, I encourage other young photographers to just take up the camera. Also, encourage African families to please support their
Mhm.
African kids.
Support.
There's so much
Yes.
potential on the continent. Please, any support we can get, please give us support. You can follow me on Axbox, but I recommend you see a lot of my pictures on Axe Photos. Unfortunately, I lost access to that account. So you can see my pictures on Axe Photos, ASKPHOTOS, and you can follow me to stay updated with me on Axbox, ASKBOOX. Thank you.
All right. Now make sure I include all of those in the notes. Thank you, Ask. Take care.
You too. Bye.